Gonna check if this is going live here. All right, it looks like I think we're good here on YouTube, you guys. All right. Well, sports betting season is in full force with the NFL officially back, which means you need a sports book with integrity and longevity like BetUS. BetUS have been pioneers in the sportsbook industry for almost 3 decades, thriving and paying their loyal customer base. And they have loads of bonuses. Join now at betus.com today and receive a 125% sign-up bonus by using bonus code Chicago125. BetUS is known as America's favorite sportsbook for a lot of reasons. BetUS has all your NFL games with team and player props and loads of NFL futures and odds. In addition to the NFL, you can bet on college football games, PGA golf, UFC matches, and more. They have every bet type imaginable as well, and the BetUS mobile platform is easy to use with full betting options. Follow my lead and get your phone, online, and social sports betting partner with integrity and longevity like I did. Cash in on your 125% sign-up bonus at betus.com with our code Chicago125. BetUS. You bet, you win, you get paid. BetUS. Welcome in, you guys, to a victory post-game show here at the Chicago Audible. As you can see, it is just me doing this show, but Mason was supposed to be on here. I just didn't. As you can see, it's a little bit different in terms of if you're watching the setup here. Mason and I could not record at Soldier Field. We usually find a room that's vacant and try to get in there before the cleaning people get in there to obviously, sanitize everything. Couldn't do that this time, and we couldn't get into our stats room to record. So I had to drive home. Mason had to drive home. I had to try to get the software going, and here we are. Again, like I said, a victory post-game show, 20-17 Bears over the Bengals. A little closer than I think a lot of people would have liked, but this is going to be obviously a way different post-game show just because it is just me. And we'll still stick to the 4 quarters, how we usually do these shows, and I'll try to fill in for, as much as I can given the circumstances. So I'm just going to jump right in, and I'll keep the chat open here too to see if anybody's saying anything, you guys any questions here. But I'm glad that we're able to get this out at some point. It looks like everyone can hear me. I think we're good to go. So let's, like I said, jump right in. First quarter of the show. And usually this is where Will has his monster moment. But I know if Will was here, he would have to say it was Roquan Smith's pick 6. It was a third down play where Roquan Smith Joe Burrow throws the ball right to him. And then he has the vision and the ability to take that interception back to the house to score a touchdown, a much needed touchdown for the Bears, making it a 17-3 game with about 10 minutes and 55 seconds left in the fourth quarter. That's the all-pro Roquan Smith that I was waiting to see. I thought there was a play last week in the game against the Rams where Roquan Smith could have easily had an interception, but he made the play today. And you saw how big it was for that defense. And really, that was the second of 4 turnovers are about to happen for the Bengals. So there was a fumble previous to Roquan Smith's pick 6 by Eddie Jackson. Tashawn Gibson was able to recover. But that one, seeing that Roquan Smith was scored, that was great to see. That's that defense that I think everybody had a chip on their shoulder. And you saw what they were able to do to that Bengals offense today that really, was able to do some good things against the Minnesota Vikings a week ago. So that would be easily the monster moment. Put in the chat what you think the monster moment could be. I'm curious to see if anybody has anything different. I'm sure there are definitely worthy plays, but I'm just curious. So definitely put in the chat what you think your monster moment would be. And now I'm going to go to what would be my opening statement. And I still don't have a name for this. It could be Nick's Quick Take or something like that. I used to, my nickname in high school was Nick the Quick for football because I was more quick than fast in terms of being a slot receiver. But Nick's Quick Take maybe. What I noticed, especially it was after actually the Bengals scored their touchdown on the very first play after Justin Fields threw his fourth quarter interception. And I was reflecting back on the Bears turnovers that they had. So, like I mentioned earlier, there was a fumble by Eddie Jackson. Bears get a field goal after starting on the Cincinnati 39. Okay, I mean, you'll take the points, right? Then you have Roquan Smith's pick 6. That's obviously a scoring play, touchdown. But then you have the other 2 turnovers, right? This is all where perfect opportunities for the Bears to score more than what they did, or even didn't. So Jalen Johnson's interception. You start on the Cincinnati 36-yard line, and you go 3 plays, -4 yards. Miss out on a big opportunity, I thought. And then you have Angelo Blackson's interception, which, anytime a defensive lineman can get a pick like that. And Akeem Hicks, who I think surprisingly showed up to the press conferences because the media wasn't expecting them to be there. Right after Justin Fields spoke, we're like, all right, we're done. And then Akeem Hicks shows up. But not to get off topic. You have Angelo Blackson's interception, right? And what do the Bears do? Again, just another field goal after starting on the Cincinnati 9-yard line. But then you see what the Bengals are able to do off their turnover after the interception by Justin Fields. They score a touchdown pass. Kindle Vildor slipped, and I think did he go to Higgins on that play? Just checking here real quick. Nope, wrong one. Yeah, I went to T. Higgins, who actually got flattened by Akeem Hicks earlier in that game. But that was something that I think, yes, great for the defense to cause those turnovers, but Matt Nagy's offense still looking for room for improvement, I would say, right? Because you have such good field goal or field position that you would like to see touchdowns. But hey, look, I'm not going to be the one here complaining about a lot of things. The Bears won, and like I said, it was a little closer than what people were expecting. 20-17, Bears get that first victory against a Bengals team that I think is very up and coming. I think for this part, obviously Mason would have his stat, and I was looking at a couple of them. What I found was interesting is that the Bears, being at home, 8 penalties for 70 yards, when, a week ago, on the road, against Los Angeles, I believe it was only 3 penalties for, I can't give you the exact number, but I thought there was you would think the Bears would play a little bit better at home in terms of being disciplined, things like, and I know there were some touchy things that were said, like the taunting by Deshaun Gibson. I'll definitely get into that later, but it was something that, I noticed there, just saying, hey, 8 penalties, 70 yards, and you just went on the road and played pretty. A team that wasn't, didn't lose their discipline in terms of those pre-snap penalties, things like that. Thought they did good on the road last week. They have some penalties to clean up this week. All right, so that really is the first quarter of the show, right? Just kind of the opening segments of how we usually go. I just did all 3, but it works for this one. And as you guys are in the chat here, and I'm talking about each point here, let's kind of go through like the offense in general. What are your biggest takeaways? And obviously I'll start with mine. And I'm going to actually start with the very first drive of the game. Now, obviously talking about the Bears offense, what the Bears were able to do. I thought it was interesting how they kind of approached the game, right? After David Montgomery's, red hot start against the Los Angeles Rams, just rushing the football effectively, breaking tackles, just showing everything that David Montgomery's about. The Bears, on that first drive at least, they elected to pass to get the ball downfield. It was a 9-play, 75-yard touchdown drive that ends with the touchdown reception to Allen Robinson. But really what got the Bears downfield was a passing game. And Andy Dalton looked sharp, looked definitive on a 3rd down and 12 play. That was, I think, a key one where maybe people will even forget about it, but he avoids the rush that's coming off the left side, I believe. I think it's I think it was maybe Jason Peters who gave up the pressure, but just trying to remember right now. But he avoids the rush and is able to give Marquise Goodwin an opportunity to make a play on that ball down the left sideline. he gets a pass interference call, is able to make the catch, I think, out of bounds, obviously, but just his movement in the pocket. And I would actually say, I don't know about you guys, but it seemed like Andy Dalton, he moves a lot better than I think people give him credit for. I know he had runs of 11 and 14 yards, things that, hey, you don't really associate with Andy Dalton, but in terms of how he moved in the pocket and did some things, it was impressive, and it was nice to see from Andy Dalton. And really, when you look at all the offensive drives that the Bears had today, that first one was the best, right? Just seeing how they were able to move down the field, where they started on their own 25, able to punch it in for that touchdown, their only offensive touchdown, right? So I liked what I saw from there. I liked what I saw from Andy Dalton on that. And even throughout the game, look, Dalton finished the game 9 of 11, only 56 yards, and was sacked one time, had the one touchdown pass. But I liked how he moved. I liked how he moved in the pocket, was able to avoid pressure, and just take what the defense was giving him, essentially. So that was nice to see. Now let's kind of transition here when Justin Fields gets in there. It was funny. Mason and I were kind of sitting, obviously sitting next to each other in the press box, and we're like, where were you when Justin Fields took over as a franchise quarterback? It's like, is this going to be the game where this is it? Matt Nagy's not going to go back. But I don't think that's the case. Obviously, Matt Nagy was asked that question, kind of, if Andy Dalton's healthy, what are you gonna do, essentially? And he's like, I'm not gonna comment on that right now, and it makes sense, right? But Justin Fields gets into the game. I think obviously the biggest thing that you kind of notice with him and what the Bears wanted to do, they really wanted to utilize his legs. And Matt Nagy asked them, Matt Nagy was asked, like, how when Justin Fields was in, they kind of tweaked the game plan a little bit, specifically because there was just certain plays that they liked specifically for Justin Fields. And it makes sense, right? And this is a guy that doesn't get any reps with the first team offense. And I think you kind of saw that a little bit come into play because you saw the 2 false starts, right? And it was like a cadence / I think leg, like Justin Fields was raising his leg or something along those lines, but it was something that he talked about. He said he would definitely fix, not a big issue or anything. But you saw, I think, a little bit of the lack of practice time between him and the first team offense, right? And I think it was expected. But I will also say this. When Justin Fields was in the game, did it not seem like all the guys around him, it just felt like they weren't making plays? There was the beautiful pass down to Allen Robinson down the left sideline, right? And Justin Fields, that's a perfectly thrown ball. It's right where Allen Robinson would want it, but can't make the catch. And Allen Robinson comes back to it, and it falls through his hands. And, Justin Fields was said in his post-game press conference, like, hey, like, he's going to keep going back to A-Rob, and he should. One of the best wide receivers, what Justin Fields said, in the league, but he's going to keep going back to him. But that's definitely a play where, hey, the veterans around him didn't make a play. There was a holding call on James Daniels, putting the offense behind the chains, and that was on the sequence of plays where Justin Fields couldn't convert on 4th down. And again, no push up front, so other guys not kind of helping out Justin Fields. There was the pass to Darnell Mooney where it looked like he could have caught that ball. Again, this was on the left sideline, right? It looked like, again, he couldn't make it. There was just a bunch of sequence of plays that I kind of remember where it's like, hey, I know Justin Fields in the game. He fixes the off. That's what a lot of people think, right? He fixes the offense. It's going to be a lot better. Well, you still need the other 10 guys on offense to help out, to put him in positions. This rookie quarterback who doesn't get any of the practice time with the ones because he's running the scout team, you still need them to come in and help out, right? And if that's not happening, you're just making life more difficult for a rookie quarterback. And then just kind of the other thing on Fields, like, and I know I tweeted out, like, when the interception was thrown, like, just a terrible decision. And for what it was, like in the game, like kind of getting back the Bengals in it was. But he explained what he saw, and he's a guy that I don't think you're going to see that same mistake twice. He said it so many times before, and that's what I think is great about Justin Fields. So he's going to learn from that moment. It's a good teaching moment. He thought it was one defense, and they dropped it out, and boom. So he's and yeah, what Jay Sanders said in the chat. He's a rookie. He's good. That will not here. I'll tell you this right now, and this should not be eye opening. Fields is going to make a lot more mistakes. Just so you know, just in case you were wondering, it's going to happen. It's a learning curve, right? And without getting, again, those reps with the first team, and maybe we'll see a little bit more throughout the week, I think you'll see those rookie mistakes minimized, right? I think that's what will end up happening. He's just that kind of guy. To talk about maybe quickly the Bears' rushing attack, and just looking at stats, for some reason, I didn't even think they broke 100 yards, but 34 carries collectively for the entire offense there for 123 yards. No rushing touchdowns, obviously. Only the one passing touchdown to Allen Robinson. But David Montgomery got that 20 carry mark, right? That's the one that Matt Nagy said he's going to get David Montgomery 20 carries. And he did this game. Now, were they as effective as last game? Obviously not. The Bengals have a pretty good front seven, right? But what you saw in this game that you saw in the previous game is that David Montgomery is one tough son of a gun to bring down. He is. It doesn't matter where you think you may have David Montgomery. You need to make a sound, clear formed tackle to bring him down. And there was a play where I think it was one of the how many receptions did he? He had 3 receptions, but one of them he's out in the flat. A guy looks like he's gonna potentially tackle him. Stiff arm. There's a spin move. The guy keeps moving his legs and carries his team to get them in manageable situations, right? And that's what you love about David Montgomery. That's a guy. That's why when the Bears are looking at getting a running back, I wanted them to get him, and it's playing dividends so far this season. He's carrying the rock and putting the Bears in a good position on offense. To look at some of the receivers, what happened, what didn't happen. You had Darnell Mooney get the majority of the targets in this game, 8 of them. Was able to bring down 6 of those catches for 66 yards. Then you had, I would say, for Allen Robinson, an up and down day, right? I believe it was a 3rd down and 12 play. If I'm not mistaken, I have my notes here that I write throughout the game, but it was a 3rd down and long, and it was a shorter pass down along the left sideline, Fields, and Allen Robinson's able to make a guy miss and get that 1st down. And I believe that ends up leading to a field goal. That's where the opposite of what I was saying earlier, where the veterans are helping out. They weren't helping out Fields. That's an instance where they did, where one of your best playmakers on offense did something on his own to help the entirety of the offense. Making a man miss along the left sideline, get that 1st down on a shorter pass. Get that yards after catch. That was pretty much non-existent in week 1. That's exactly what you want to see. But then there's the flip side to it with Allen Robinson. He had that, like I said, the drop, and it was on the interception. Was it the interception to Jalen Johnson or Angelo Black? Whichever one it came off of, where they had the isolated 3rd down play where it's Allen Robinson one-on-one to the left, front corner of the end zone. Excuse me. Front corner of the end zone, and Robinson can't bring down the ball. Look, Justin Fields gave him an opportunity, right? And I like that call. Like I said, you get somebody one-on-one, one of your best playmakers on offense, your best wide receiver, a chance to make a play. And he didn't make it. And then we would come to see he didn't make another play later that dropped in the end zone. So, but still, the play call, the mentality, the philosophy, the thought that went behind it with Matt Nagy trying to scheme up a play like that, I'm good with it. I'm all for trying to give one of your best playmakers an option and a one-on-one opportunity. What did kind of surprise me, if you look really at the stat sheet, just on ESPN, whatever you want to use, you look at the receiving, right? I'm just looking down. Mooney, Robinson, Montgomery, Goodwin. You got Damian Williams. Cole Kmet. 1 reception, on 1 target, 0 yards. And he also had that offensive pass interference call. It's I'm not going to say like you should be super concerned about it, but you would think somebody that, the first pick that the Bears made last year, Cole Kmet, I thought he would have been more involved, especially like in a game like this. Yes, he did have his targets, his receptions in the first game against the Rams, but yeah, he just was pretty much non-existent in this game, and that was a little surprising to see. And you hardly really even see Jimmy Graham out there. I think he tried blocking for Justin Fields on the left side, and that didn't really end up working. So it was a little weird to see the lack of usage from Cole Kmet. And then to obviously talk about the offensive line. We can't talk about the Bears' offense without the offensive line. I mean, you guys kind of saw there was pressure given up, and I think the Bears are still trying to work things out. There's a couple holding calls, like I said. There was some false starts. There was just people missing blocks. Jason Peters, I saw, missed a couple blocks. I think, what was it, Jermaine? Was it Jermaine Ifedi, or it was Sam Mustipher against, who was it, B.J. Hill, if I'm not mistaken. Bengals interior defensive lineman, beat Sam Mustipher on a play. And look, credit to Andy Dalton and Justin Fields making things happen with their legs when they needed to when stuff broke down. And that's going to be something that I think all season the Bears are going to have to deal with in terms of what this offensive line can be and what they're capable of. But obviously you're seeing they're still working out some of the kinks, and the third down and 1, 4th down and 1, where the Bears are trying to just get 1 yard up the middle, there wasn't any push by that offensive line. So that's going to be something, and that's always been, I would say, a weakness of this Bears offensive line. No matter how well they can look at times, just physically, can they get things going? And you just really haven't seen that. So still a lot of things to work on, and we'll see if things get better when players hopefully down the road come back. Like Larry Bourne was just put on IR. Obviously Tevin Jenkins is on IR, but maybe that can help the overall offensive line to get a few guys back. But you have to work with the guys they have, and there's still work to be done, obviously. All right. Look, I'm trying to think really anything about this Bears offense. I talked about the incapabilities of this entire unit to capitalize on good field position after turnovers. Really, Andy Dalton, Justin Fields, the rushing attack, receiving core. I don't think red zone for the win. I'm kind of looking at the chat here to see if there's anything. I think we got the main takeaways on offense. Still, only 14 points, right? That was generated from the offense. Obviously, Cairo Santos kicking some field goals, but 14. So, one offensive touchdown. Talon Robinson on the first drive. And then every other drive from there was a penalty. Matt Nagy talked about in his press conference, there was 4 or 5, what is the exact word he said? There were 4 or 5 plays that if you take those back, you generate some of those explosive type of plays. I talked about some of the missed opportunities from Allen Robinson, from Darnell Mooney, things like that. Even it was an offsetting penalty, but you guys remember it was a short pass to David Montgomery along the left side in the flat. He makes a man miss, goes up the sideline. I believe there's a hold. Can't even remember who the hold was on. But there's a holding call on the Bears. There was a roughing the passer on the Bengals. Offset, out of there, right? Cliff asked me real quick, Nick, what do you see as the good and the bad? I think the good is in spurts like this offense can somewhat move the ball. There were a couple more 3-and-outs in this game than there were at all in the last game, right? For the most part, even though the Bears couldn't score against the Rams, there weren't any 3-and-outs. What you saw here is that I think I'll say this specifically to Justin Fields, he knows what his strengths are, and I think we're going to start to see that a little bit more as obviously he keeps playing, as he gets implemented into this offense, and seeing how Andy Dalton doing health-wise, that will definitely be something the Bears will work on. And you also saw some of those just opportunities to take deep shots. Yes, the Bears didn't hit on a lot of them. I think there was only technically one explosive play, and that was Darnell Mooney's 21-yard reception. In my bold prediction, I said the Bears would get 3. I didn't think it was too bold, but they didn't do that in terms of a passing explosive play. So they still got to work in that regard. And then I think one of the weaknesses, points, guys. Yeah, you got to finish drives. You got to capitalize on turnovers. Yes, this is the first game the Bears forced some turnovers, 4 of them. But you got to capitalize when you have such prime field position. And the Bears didn't do that. And that's still the issue. Scoring points. And if you can't, you can move the ball, do all this, get the ball to your playmakers, and not have explosive plays, but not get points, then it really is all for show, right? So that's obviously something that needs to be worked on. And then one more for Cliff. Thank you for all the questions, Cliff. You're awesome. Was Fields calling any audibles, or was he running the plays as scripted? I would definitely say scripted, but there was one of the plays where, man, what is it, number 24 or 21, the nickel corner safety was coming off the edge. Fields points this guy out. He knows exactly where this is coming, where the blitz is coming from. But, of course, I think it was Jermaine Ifedi. Someone had a false start. And Fields, you could see it from the press box view. Fields knows exactly where this guy is coming from. It's not like the one play against, Buffalo? Where he gets, his helmet knocked off, right? So Fields identified the blitz. It just happened that, the Bears had a false start on the play. So you see the good from Fields, but we didn't get to see it executed right, to see what he would have done to, combat the blitz. But I would definitely say it's scripted. It's his first game without, like I said, going back again, not having much practice time with the ones. All right, let's get off of the offensive talk here. Go to the defense, and man, you had Joe Burrow and Mixon, like guys that were just doing great things against the Vikings, and really for the most part, for most of this game until late, where they started to come back, the Bears held them in check, right? And there were only reason there were opportunities for this Bengals offense because of boneheaded mistakes from this Bears defense in terms of penalties on third downs. There was the first one with Kindle Vildor. He has a great pass breakup. What is that? Jamar Chase, I believe. It was one-on-one pass breakup. But there was the taunting play by Deshaun Gibson. Extends the drive. The Bengals don't end up getting anything off of that, but a nice play there. Then you have the Roquan Smith, the Robert Quinn. He gets a sack on Joe Burrow, ends up also getting a personal foul, and that's also on third down. So you're keeping the Bengals around, but those are the bad, because really when you look at how this defense played, swarming to the ball, there weren't any really explosive plays in the rushing attack from the Cincinnati game plan. The longest run was 10 yards, and Joe Mixon was actually the only one that registered any type of rushes on the day, which I guess is not too surprising, but yeah, it's they did a really good job with him. And guys that showed up, and I can't wait to go rewatch this game just to kind of go back through it. Angelo Blackson, man. Obviously, he had the interception, but seeing him even spurts last game, he only played about 40% of the defensive snaps against the Rams. He's a guy that can get back there, that can make plays, that is such an asset to have, especially when Mario Edwards is not in the lineup, and he will be next week. So the Bears will be getting somebody like him back. But defensively, I really thought the corners in the beginning of the game, and even Jalen Johnson for the entirety of the game, just played really sound. Were where they needed to be. We're making plays. And Jalen Johnson in his Friday press conference, if you go back and listen to it and even watch how he answers some of the questions, he had something to prove. He wanted to prove something about this Bears defense, and I think he reads everything. I think he's one of those guys that knows exactly what's being said, who's saying it maybe, and what's the narrative around this defense. And really it was, hey, this is not the same unit. This is not 2018. They're regressing and are not going to be a good unit. I think the entire defense was like, all right, we'll show you. And Joe Burrow, limited, right? Limited, obviously, in his rookie season, but only had 5 interceptions. He had 3 today. 3 today, and 1 was by a defensive lineman because Alec Ogletree tipped the pass. So you saw that from the defense, just them playing with a chip on their shoulder, right? And guys were hitting too. Akeem Hicks was asked from if you guys need to follow the Biggs and Herb on there, who asked great question. He asked him about the play where Akeem Hicks, he travels a good distance to tackle T. Higgins, and man, after the play, Higgins is hurt. He ends up catching a touchdown later, but I think that mentality, and Akeem Hicks talked about in his press conference that you gotta want these things. If you want to be a good unit, you gotta and paraphrasing here, but you gotta show it through your actions. And Akeem Hicks traveling 20-something yards to get T. Higgins, who's on the other side of the field, shows that. You see Alec Ogletree getting some big hits. You saw Angelo Blackson making some plays and getting back there at Joe Burrow. Khalil Mack opening up things for Robert Quinn, right? So when the entire unit is playing cohesively and having just the bounce back game that they did after just mental lapses, it was great to see. And the turnovers came with it, something that wasn't present in the first game. So you really like to see that. You like to see leaders kind of making those plays too, especially Roquan Smith. And even Eddie Jackson had a really key tackle. And yeah, Eddie Jackson had a key tackle, right? So it almost sounds a little weird. And I know, yeah, Jay Sanders, he did take out Kendall Vilder. That's the thing too. Some of the angles some of these guys take, and yeah, it's in the moment. Like, it was a deep pass down, Jamar Chase, right? And then it is a pretty bad angle by Eddie Jackson. He does take out Kendall Vildor, and they score. But I think Desai found something that he likes. And you saw on the sack by Robert Quinn, I think his first one of the game, it is a stunt with Khalil Mack. Sean Desai has been talking about putting these guys in the best position possible so they can make plays. Well, there's an opportunity right there. Getting the stunt there to open up things for Robert Quinn when all the focus is going to really be on Khalil Mack, right? So that's great to see. And then you also saw, just in terms of what Desai wanted to do, especially early on, I noted it, you had DeAndre Houston-Carson and Duke Shelley in kind of this big nickel. And there was how many? That would have been 5 DBs? 6 DBs on the field. And it wasn't necessarily just in obvious passing downs. They were, maybe 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5. Like, there were DBs out there. So I wonder if that's going to be something that Sean Desai wants to utilize. And we saw Marquis Christian in the first game not do very well against the Rams. Duke Shelley had his moments where he was beat. People were getting free, but he also made a couple good tackles here and there. There was a nice tackle actually inside where you see number 20, the smallest guy in the field, making a tackle just in that scrum of giant human beings, right? But it's still a position where you got to focus in on and see who's playing it, and who's the opposite receiver going up against it, because that's who opponents are going to attack when they're playing the Bears defense. It's just the obvious one, right? It's the most vulnerable spot, and right now the weakest link. And until the Bears do something like how Sean Desai was doing, kind of to mask that weakness, then teams are going to keep going there. But you can't. 17 points, a lot of it came late. It's a very impressive performance. And just looking at like what the pass rush did today, I know when you're looking at sacks, you had 4 for 28 yards. Like I said, the 4 turnovers, 3 interceptions, the fumble, and guys just being in the right spot. They're in the right spot. Even on the explosive play down the field to Jamar Chase, at least he wasn't, Cooper Kupp wide open, right? There was somebody at least in the vicinity, so they're getting something right. Still a touchdown. Still got to make the play, but I think we saw improvement And now we got to see, who is this Bears defense? Are they closer to week 1? Are they closer to week 2? Are they somewhere in between? I think we're going to find that out, and we'll obviously see that next Sunday's game against Cleveland to see where they're really at and see how they can build off of this performance. Yeah, guys, trying to see what else is going on with the defense. I think, again, I'll have a better analysis, too, when I can rewatch this game. Watching the press box is it's great. I love it. It's a great vantage point. Just being at that altitude, too, just seeing everything is awesome. But you don't get a lot of the TV copy, obviously. There is a TV. There's one that's like right above me, but you really need to lean your head back to even see that thing. So you don't get to see a lot of the things. Some of the other things, even some of the replays, they'll show quickly, but once it's gone, you can't go rewind like you could, at home. So definitely would be able to provide some better analysis and just other key takeaways from this game. I saw somebody, hopefully number 91 will be back. Yeah, man, that would be a huge boost, getting potentially Eddie Goldman and Mario Edwards to go with a defensive line that had a pretty disruptive good day against Joe Burrow. Hey, that Holy Samurai Jerusalem, that'd be huge. Cliff, would you say the linebackers are stronger than the D-line or vice versa? Ooh, good question. You know what? I thought Alec Ogletree had a pretty good game. Then you add Roquan Smith, who had a phenomenal game. So I'll go with the linebackers, but I don't think it's like a large gap because I think that entire unit cohesively, that front seven, really played lights out today. All right, guys, moving on here. We usually do the quick hit on special teams, and, I mean, they weren't – well, Cairo Santos was obviously a huge factor in this game. But other than, like, field goal kicking, Santos obviously going 2 for 2. But you had some, I would say, look, Pat O'Donnell had 4 punts for 169 yards. Okay, 1 touchback, 2 inside the 20. Okay. And look, I'm not going to go super in depth about special teams, just not. But I think one thing we may need to monitor, Nsimba, he got nicked up at some point, and then you had, I think, Darnell Mooney was doing a kick return, but there was actually the Bears didn't have any punt return opportunities, which is interesting. Or nothing's on the stat sheet, but I know Nsimba had something going on, so just maybe keep that in mind for maybe what we'll see on injury reports, or hopefully not seeing injury reports, to be completely honest. All right. Trying to see here. Of course, quick hit on special teams. Oh, that's right. I have to give an MVP. This whole entire show is just so different without everybody else, which is a little sad. But, yeah, MVP. I'm just going to say it. It's Roquan Smith. I'll give it to Roquan being the MVP of this one. He had 8 total tackles, that pick 6, 1 sack. 5 of those 8 total tackles were just solo tackles. And I think you saw a presence there. When he's playing that way, man, it's tough. It's tough for opposing offenses to, one, if you're trying to stretch them out horizontally, east and west, his speed makes a difference. His knowledge of the game makes a difference. Knowing where to be on that pick 6 and knowing how to navigate through traffic to get to the left sideline. Who was it? Kendall Vildor, and was it Alec Ogletree? I don't remember leading the way, but knowing that you have trust in those guys to get you into the end zone, because that was important in this game, because the offense wasn't getting into the end zone, so it was really important that Roquan Smith scored, and he showed that. So not gonna overthink this. Roquan Smith's the MVP. If anybody has anything different, definitely put it down in the chat. Who you think is deserving to be the MVP, most valuable Bear of this Bears 20-17 victory over the Bengals. So that one, Jalen Johnson. Hey, Sanders, I like Jalen Johnson too, man. Like it was so nice to see him get his first career interception. I asked him in the press conference what he thinks of this Bengals receiving core. A lot of good weapons, but he was obviously up to the challenge. He also had, it was somewhere in the second half, there was a deep shot, I think it was to Higgins again, right there in coverage, and even got a PBU with his back. He got a PBU with his back, so he doesn't even have to see the play to make plays. Jalen Johnson, up-and-coming corner. All right, and now we kind of just close out the show, the 2-minute warning. Quick recap of everything that's happened. The Bears are 1-1, and I know Matt Nagy earlier in the week said this wasn't a must-win game, but we all know the stats of how teams who are 0-2 and their chances of making the playoffs. And that's going too far down the line, and I don't have the timer here, so I'm going to go as long as I want or as short as I want. But the Bears are 1-1. They corrected a lot of the defensive mistakes you saw in week 1. Those got corrected. Were there some bad penalties? Yes. Were there some bad angles? There were. But were there impactful turnover creating plays? Absolutely. And when the Bears defense is playing that way and is able to stop, after week 1, the leading rusher in the NFL, Joe Mixon, and hold him to, 20 carries for 69 yards? Nice. That is impressive. You do that without Eddie Goldman. No Mario Edwards. That's collective great defense. And then to do what they did to Joe Burrow, man, that's a guy that he sees stuff. He calls audibles. He knows all the things that what you want to see in a quarterback. I know he's only in year 2 and had limited play, like I said earlier, but he's a good QB. He can put the ball right where it needs to be, and he knows usually where to go. 19 of 30, 207 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. That's impressive from what the Bears are able to do to a quarterback that's going to be a guy who's going to be a very good quarterback in the league for a very long time. So really like that. And then offensively, I would say this. Let's just get used to seeing more and more Justin Fields. And it was a little when he came in and he stayed in the game, or when he came in and you knew Andy Dalton wasn't coming back out, for some reason I got chills. And yeah, he didn't have the greatest performance, right? But there's just something about him. And it's whoever hasn't been to a game, you just got to go. And every time he gets in there, he can hand the ball off, and people are losing their mind. But I would say, again, get used to seeing that. Whether it is in spurts, if Andy Dalton does come back and is healthy, then you'll see him. But this is all leading up, like we all know, to him taking over. And when that time comes, he'll be ready, because that's just who he is. But the Bears offense needs to get better by capitalizing and getting the ball into the end zone. That's 2 weeks in a row. 2 weeks in a row where we haven't seen the scoring that we'd like to see. You've seen, at times this offense move the ball, but it needs to get better. Maybe it'll help when they can limit some of the mistakes along the offensive line. Those playmakers that we're talking about on offense, that the receiver can just make and finish those plays. Had a couple drops in this one, so correct those mistakes. And if you get your defense and your offense playing to a level that it's going to be hard for other teams to contend with, man, now you have a team that it's not just the Bears. You look at the schedule, W against them. Now you have something here, but we got to see where this team really is at. Like I said, is that defense closer to week 1 or today? And we'll see in week 3. Offensively, they had a bunch of first downs against the Rams, no points. They had the 1 touchdown drive right to begin the game, and then nothing, really. It was pretty stalled, inconsistent offense. So that needs to get better. But let's see what this team can do. They're 1-1. It's a Bears victory. First one of the 2021 NFL season. Enjoy it. And I know, you can be mad about some of the things, but I'd say enjoy it. So I think that's going to do it. And Cliff, I have no update on Andy Dalton's health. I think what Matt Nagy did say, he ruled out any type of tears. Someone asked him, is that an AC or MCR? I forgot exactly what it was, but Nagy said, I'm pretty sure I can rule that out. And then actually, who was it? Darnell Mooney, when I was at his press conference, he saw Andy Dalton was walking with a little limp. I think they said he was going to get x-rays just to make sure everything was okay, but I think from how it sounds, he should be good to go. And look, Andy Dalton, I thought looked pretty good. Pretty good, especially just moving in the pocket. So, all right, I'm getting on a tangent here. I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you, everybody who tuned in. I know it's 7:30 Central Time. Usually we do these right after the games, but like I said, we couldn't get access at Soldier Field to record, but I really appreciate everybody who's here, who listened. Hopefully enjoyed just me talking about this Bears 20-17 victory over the Cincinnati Bengals. Make sure you're following me at Nicholas Moreano on Twitter. Follow our Instagram account, which needs more followers. That'd be great. I'll start posting more. We get more followers. Maybe it should be the other way around. Who knows? Obviously, follow Chicago Audible on Facebook and Twitter. And if you haven't already, I'm obviously wearing one of my, nicer shirts, I guess. Go to chicagoaudible.com/shop and go get some Chicago Audible gear. And then once you get that gear, post a picture with it. And that's Instagram content right there. I'll put it on our Instagram, feature you guys and girls for again supporting the podcast. Will, Mason, and I would greatly appreciate that. But thanks, everybody. Have a great Victory Monday, and we'll talk to you soon. But until then, bear down, Chicago. Let's see, gotta find. Oh yeah, this is the part where I just kind of stay here because I have to stop the stream and then it'll cut off.